Hey, this is Johnny Beane, and you are watching Talking Guitars here on the Johnny Beane YouTube channel. We're also live on X. We're also live on Facebook. And we have a very special guest. Actually, you can introduce yourself. Mico.
Mico Klokoc.
Mico Klokoc. And you work on work on electronics, amplifiers,
Amplifiers,
uh,
pedals.
pedals. So we'll be talking to Mico tonight. Any questions in the chat? Feel free to ask, and we'll have a great show. So here we go. Hey, what's up, you guys? Johnny Beane here, and this is Talking Guitars. It is Tuesday, Tune In Tuesday night, November 19th, 2024, and it's just after 9 p.m. Eastern Time, which, you're Eastern Time, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Where are you based out of?
Indianapolis, Indiana.
Indianapolis, Indiana. Okay, cool. Cool. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking you were in Nashville because I think you had talked
I
about
just got
Nashville.
back from Nashville.
Okay, that's it. Very cool. Well, hey, you guys, let's make this a real show and let's say hello to the top tier of channel members here on the Johnny Beane YouTube station. Channel members is a channel membership. It's a great way you can help support the channel and support these shows. And the top tier are the executive producers. They are currently CC, Bay Area Rich, Majestic PB and JCat, Music Therapy Laz, Michael B, Sherman Callahan, Nova 9, Warlags, Arhabs, Flipper Carlin, Woody Be Real, and Janice Lala, the intern. Do you have any interns for your business?
I don't. I work with a bunch of people, and typically for me, it's a one-man show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my wife helps me every now and then, but everything I do, it's took me years to develop, and it's kind of hard to train. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you really got to have some ears to be able to listen to the nuances.
I can get that. I understand that, man. I'm a musician myself. I've got a
I
5150
see.
back there, the original one, and
Nice.
guitars and pedals. I'm in a brand new studio here. This
Oh,
is a
wow.
brand new dedicated studio for doing these shows, and it's just it's awesome because I used to do all these shows out of my living room.
It
And
looks awesome.
thank you, man. Thank you. So you're in your studio?
I'm
You're
I'm 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 in just my little amp room that my
mm-hmm.
wife likes to call it. Um, I got amps upon amps, more amps than one guy needs. But like I
I've got
said,
like two.
right.
Yeah.
But when you've been doing as long as I have, I like to have a little variety of tones. Like even with guitars, it's a Strat, a Telecaster, a Les Paul, and a modified Strat or a Super Strat.
Oh, there you go. What else do you need? Well, besides more guitars, I guess.
Well,
But that.
a good amp to me is going to inspire you to play.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like an extension of your playing. It's Ken Fischer used to tell me that if you take a guys will think nothing of spending $2,000 or more on a guitar and then play it through a $500 amp
Mm-hmm.
and expect it to be great. But if you go the other direction, spend more money on your amp, you could play a $150 guitar through that and still sound like $1,000,000. It doesn't work the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
And if it does, it's only a handful of people that can do that. Very few can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And sorry, we're having like some internet issues right
Right.
now. Hopefully, yeah, you can still hear me, right?
Oh yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. As long as we can hear each other, I think
Okay.
we'll be fine. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Yeah. It's weird having some internet stuff, but yeah, I've always kind of said for years and years myself, it's like it's all about the amplifier. Like you can have a guitar that's, I mean, kind of like what you said. You can have, I could play this. This is a blow up
Right.
guitar.
Right.
I could play this through the cheapest amp. It'll still sound cheap. But if I played this through even like the nicest amp, it'll sound pretty good, right?
Without doubt.
It's the amplifier that really makes the
Right.
difference.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, on electric guitars, I say without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can go deeper into that by which pickups you're using and what string gauge you're using, and even down to your volume pot.
Yep.
Because now it doesn't always sound great, but using a 500K with a humbucker, you can use a 300. You could use a 250. Like Eddie used a 310 in his Frankenstein, and I don't know if I'm supposed to say that right now, but I just.
That's okay. Yeah. Well, hey, let's say we're live, by the way.
Okay.
So let's say hello to some people here really quickly in the chat here. We got My Knees Hurt. He's saying hello to Jason. Hello, you guys. We got Charles Kelly. He's a channel member. Jason's a channel member. We are live right now. Good to see you, man. Charles Kelly, channel member. There you are. Let's see. Woody Be Real is here. Channel member. Good to see you, man. We got Michael Tagler. Got a lot of channel members here. It's awesome. We got Searching for Tone saying retired turned content creator, working more now.
Well, you came to the right place.
Yes, this is definitely the right place for that. We got Robot Master Switch, who has a comment here. A cheap guitar just needs a proper setup, fret dress, and polish. Better nut, tuners, pickups, and wiring. You can do a lot. A bad, crappy amp with crap speakers and electronics, zero options. Yeah,
Right.
There you go, man. There you go. My Knees Hurt says, I've never seen a 310K pot.
You got to measure them. It's not something that's you're just going to pick up off of the shelf.
So again, it goes back to the ears,
Without a doubt.
right?
Or you walk into your local store and buy all the ones that are on the shelf and measure them with your multimeter to make sure you get the right one you want. Because they're all kind of inconsistent.
They'll all be just a little
A
different.
little off.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool. There you go. Okay. So we got Peggy. Our friend Peggy is here in the chat. Peggy and James. Great to see you guys. So our guest tonight. Oh, by the way, Ron. I have a co-host a lot of nights. He's not here. He's under the weather. So Ron is not here tonight. But we got Mico. Say your last name again.
Klokoc.
Klokoc.
It's Czechoslovakian. Yeah.
Okay, Mico Klokoc.
I know it's a mouthful.
So, Janice the intern is here. MPN is here. Good to see everybody. Okay, so it says under your lower third here, it says amp guy. So what's your history with with amplifiers?
Well, it started out when I was young. I mean, when I say young, I mean 6 years old. My grandfather was a tinkerer, so I would spend time with him on the weekends. And to get me out of his hair, here's a bottle of solder, here's a soldering iron, go play. And try not to get
I
hurt.
burnt myself last week soldering. Actually,
What?
I burnt myself on a soldering gun right there.
many times for myself. But he would say, just go play. And he was a country guitar player. So he knew a few chords, but when I would say, well, how does this work? What makes this work? He gradually started showing me. And that kind of got the bug. Then when I put it together, that tube amps and rock music kind of go hand in hand in the 70s. As a little boy, that kind of just changed my world. Then discovering Van Halen on the radio was just mind blowing to me. I mean, it would have been about 78, 79.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the youngest in my family. So my brothers are all easily 6 to 14 years older than me. So all that good 70s music, I was around. So if my mom was at home, my brother had a party in the 70s, and it was my turn to watch me, I was at that party. If it was going to a concert, I was at that concert. You know, good, bad, or ugly.
Yeah.
So, but it really introduced me to a lot of this great music. I mean, he burned out Toys in the Attic by Aerosmith, that record. He burned it out. I mean, in 8-track and in on a disc, just burned it out. He had like 3 copies. So when he would get a new copy, I would get the old copy and sat in my little room and played on my little record player, and just became a love for that music. It runs deep.
Man, that's so cool. So you must have heard everything.
Without a doubt. I mean, the main stuff was obviously the Midwestern stuff, like a lot of Ted Nugent, a lot of REO Speedwagon, a lot of Cheap Trick, a lot of I would say maybe Bob Seger, you know, all the 70s Bad Company, which really wasn't Midwest, but was played a lot on the radio and at home. My mom was really into like Elvis and maybe a little bit of the Rolling Stones, but not too hard stuff, and a lot of country music.
So you grew up on a good variety of
Without
music
a doubt.
there.
Without a doubt.
And so when you say, because you had said earlier you heard Van Halen on the radio, so like your brothers would pass down these records to you. So I'm assuming you probably knew like every song on every album.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That's kind of what helped me get the gig with Aerosmith. I mean, I'll go into that a little later if you like, but
Sure.
It was, you know, I could name almost every song on that record at one point. I just turned 53 last week. My memory's not as good as it used to be, but it's still pretty good.
Man, it sounds like you've lived, I mean, a rock star's life.
I've been blessed. I mean, I tell my wife and some friends, I don't want to go tomorrow, but if I did, I would be okay with it because I've lived 3 and 4 lifetimes.
Man, that's amazing. Let's see. A couple comments here. Woody Be Real, channel member here on YouTube, says older brothers in the 70s were the best.
Yes, indeed.
There you go. I don't have any brothers, so I wouldn't know, but Peggy is saying hope Ron feels better. Yeah, Ron, if you're watching us, hope you feel better, man.
And I hope you're watching, Ron.
And we hope you're watching too, because we
Yes.
can use all the help we can get. Well, speaking of not feeling well, we can get into that real quick. You ever go to the reason I say that is because January's coming up. The NAMM show is coming up. I'll be there. Do you go to the NAMM show?
I've been once a long time ago. I was invited again this year to go with One Control, which is a pedal company out of Japan and an amp company, to go there and kind of meet some sales guys and meet the owners.
Cool. So are you going?
I'm planning on it. Just all depends on what happens between now and then.
Okay, cool. I'll be there.
Awesome.
I actually have a card there, right there.
Oh, cool.
January 21st,
Nice.
2025. Yeah. NAMM is inviting me nowadays as media.
That's cool.
So I'll definitely be there. I'll be there the entire time, and definitely if you're there, we'll definitely have to meet up and hang out. You know.
I'll introduce you to one of the best, I would say, top 3 pedal builders, designers in the world. This guy's awesome. And it's good to have friends like that.
Does it look like I like pedals?
Yes, it does. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. When I built this studio, everybody has guitars on their walls, right? And I thought, just to be a little different, put some pedals. Put some pedals
awesome.
up there. I got the guitars. I've got some other stuff here.
Wow.
I like my Starbucks, as you
Yes,
can see
indeed.
there. But dude, that'd be amazing. Pedals, man. That's right. Let's see. Holly Lewis is here. Hey, Holly, good to see you. Would he be real is saying he'll be at NAMM. Cool. Actually, we just met, right? Would he be real? I think we just met like a month ago. Yeah. So, okay. So you grew up in the 70s listening to, it sounds like pretty much almost everything. Everything cool, at least. Everything.
Yes, indeed.
So you have a good background on music, rock music, country music,
Blues.
blues, Elvis,
Yes.
all that stuff. I like all the same stuff. This is good.
Well, I've had 43 trachea surgeries to date. And my uncle used to say, "Oh, you sound like Howlin' Wolf." He would play me Howlin' Wolf records when I was a kid. So it's like every genre of music that I guess you wouldn't expect, I was exposed to. From jazz, blues, old school blues. Then with my brothers, it's rock music. It's Queen Night at the Opera. It's Ted Nugent. It's his first couple records. It's Pink Floyd. It's it's the Rolling Stones. Get your yayas out. Stuff like that.
Oh, that's great.
And obviously Toys in the Attic, which is my fave.
There you go.
Other than Van Halen 2.
Van Halen 2. So your two favorites, favorite Aerosmith, Toys in the Attic, favorite Van Halen 2?
Yes, I would say that.
Okay. What if you were to put them against each other? Which one?
That's hard. That's really difficult because I got to know both bands over time.
Oh,
and
no way.
It's like, it's just hard, man. I guess if that's Desert Island Records, those are the two I'd bring. I just enjoy them both.
Man.
They both hold a place in my heart, so to speak.
I can understand that. The first stuff that you get into when you're a kid, the first stuff you discover, the stuff that makes you be like, oh wow, what's this? There's always a special place for that, no matter where you go in life, no matter what you can continue on with, whatever you. I listen to everything musically,
Right.
Most of the music I listen to nowadays doesn't even have a guitar in it, and I'm a guitarist. That's what I do,
Right.
But I find inspiration from everywhere, and that's something I was going to ask you too. So you had said, well, you play the guitar.
I play a little.
Right? You play a little bit.
I would say out of the guys I work with and continue to work with, I'm not a guitar player, but they all tell me I can play. So, but I don't consider myself a guitar player, but I can play.
But you do play.
Yes.
And so do you work on guitars too?
If I need to, when I was on tour, I had to do it, but I'm more specialized now, just into amps. And so I can do it. I just don't advertise that I do it or anything like that.
So speaking of amps, like again, what's your history with working on amplifiers?
Well, it started out, basically, I was 12 years old, and my grandfather took me basically as far as he could take me with his electronic knowledge. Then I find out that Ken Fischer worked on Eddie Van Halen's main amp. And that was like, wow. And he played Kramer Guitars from everything that we know, especially when I was a kid. My mother, yeah, right. But luckily to me, my mother worked at the phone company and she was a supervisor. So I could basically say, hey, Mom, can you get me these phone numbers? She'd come back the next day and have them. Here you go. Listed or unlisted, it didn't matter. She could get them. And I took full advantage of that. And I reached out to Kramer, I think, first. And I'm 12 years old. I talked to Artist Relations, and they patched me over to that. And I think it's Paul Unkert.
Yeah.
Who built Eddie's guitars.
I know Paul.
Okay.
I've had him on the show twice. Well, years,
Awesome.
like 10
Awesome.
years ago. A long time
Awesome.
ago. Yeah.
And he was very gracious, listening to my 12-year-old questions. Then he goes, hey, have you talked to Trainwreck Circuits? Ken Fischer? No, but that's my next call. Yeah, call him. So I call Ken. Long story short, he takes all my 12-year-old questions, everything, and says, hey, stay in touch. Tell me what you're working on and stay in touch with me. And me at 12, and I still kind of do this, I'm literal. So if you tell me to do something, I'm going to do it. If I tell you, I'm going to do it. So I stayed in touch. And when I was about 16, I get a call from Kenny saying, hey, are you available? Available for what? Well, are you out of school? He didn't know how old I was. So I was basically in high school. And he says, I don't want you to quit, but I want you to do everything you can do to be done as soon as possible. Night school, summer school, everything. So I did that. I call him up. I'm done. What's going on? Well, Aerosmith needs a tech. And you're one of 3 guys that I'm recommending. If they like you, you get the gig. I'm like, what? How quick can you string a Les Paul and tune it up? That was one of the questions. Mm-hmm. What about a Stratocaster? If he plays this song, which amps would you pick? And I tell him. He goes, do you have any equipment? I got a little bit. He goes, we're already sending him a list, their manager, of everything that you're going to need. They'll buy it for you, and it's going to be yours. So when this is done, you can take it home with you. So you could be 3 months. It could be 6 months. It could be the whole year. He goes, I don't know. He goes, but they need somebody pretty soon. And their main guy's definitely coming back, but this could open up some doors. I said, okay.
Yeah.
So I did it. And he said, print up some cards, have your contact information, and pass them out to everybody. Because everybody wanted to see this opening act, which was Guns N' Roses. That record hasn't came out yet. Or if it did come out, very few people knew about it. It wasn't on the radio yet. And you know that Appetite for Destruction exploded. You know, it just exploded.
I bought it.
Biggest rock albums of that year.
Yeah. Yep.
So it was
you couldn't get away from it. You couldn't get away from this Sweet Child of Mine on MTV. It was
without a doubt
all the time. Yeah.
So it was like I went to St. Paul, Minnesota. The driver picks me up. I meet the other 2 guys. The one guy was like 36. The other guy was in his like 28. I'm 17. And I was told they have to like you. You got to gel with them. Otherwise, you're not getting in. Mm-hmm. And we go have like a lunch, like around, I think it was like 3 or 5 in that range. And there's no place to sit for me. I'm thinking the only place there is right next to Joe Perry. So I walk in, grab my food, grab a Coca-Cola. I come in and sit right next to Joe Perry. He looks over at me like, who's this kid? And because they're all in their 30s, early 40s then. And Joe starts asking me questions. Hey, what's your favorite album by us? I said, Toys in the Attic. Well, name some songs. he like tried to quiz me. I
Mhm.
named every song on the record except for one. I just couldn't remember it. And he was, oh, okay. Brad Whitford sitting across from us, he's asking me questions. Well, if I play this song, which amps would I be using? Well, if it was me, here's what I would use. Then I would use this for the solo. Okay. Then the other guy, the older guy, he like, well, I would actually use an Ampeg and I would do this. That's what you guys use in the studio. And I just put my head down. They sent him packing right shortly after dinner. They sent him packing. So Ken Fischer told me, if I didn't know the answer or didn't feel right about the answer, just kind of sit back and chill. Don't say anything. You know, let them kind of guide you. So he goes, look, let's go see the equipment. So we go see the guitars and all the amps. And I'm in heaven. And he's like, what do you know about the Supro? Well, I know it's wired like a rat's nest, but I worked on a couple of them. I'm familiar. These are the tubes. This is what, to me, sounds the best. And I like it with the Celestion speaker. Wow, that's good. So we're walking and talking. Me and the other guy's like 28. I reach in my pocket to hand Joe Perry a business card of mine. And when I do that, my keys fall on the floor. And a friend gave me a Beavis and Butthead keychain. And it went off. It like started laughing when it hit the floor. And I'm like, oh. I go, I'm not really a big fan of Beavis and Butthead, but, I didn't know how that was going to affect the job. So he said, is that your keys? I said, yeah. I pick them up. I go, yeah, a friend gave me this before I came out. He goes, walk with me. Hey, Brad, come on. We walk out to the bus. He walks up. He goes, look over here. He pushed the power button on the VCR, because VCR days. It's Beavis and Butthead. They watch him every night after the show. Every night they watch Beavis and Butthead. And they were into it, like severely. And I think that's what helped me get the gig. Without a doubt. And
the keys falling out, and then
Beavis and
laughing.
Butthead. Right. That was part of it. But we became friends, and the manager had me do some other things to help Joe Perry out, kind of make it to the tour, so to speak, and try to keep him healthy. And that was just a fun time. Then I could walk across the hall, and there's Guns N' Roses. And they're in their mid-20s or early 20s. And it was night and day, literally night and day. Aerosmith's working out, drinking sports shakes, Guns N' Roses, vodka, and everything else that goes along with it. And you're wondering how these guys do that night after night. I mean, it was real and it was raw. It was wild.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Going back to what you were saying earlier about if you don't know the answer, just kind of listen. Right. That's really where the power is just listen. Listen and learn. Don't try to be the know-it-all.
Right.
Say all the stuff because 9 times out of 10 you'll say everything wrong.
Right.
And it's not a good look.
Well, and also, I mean, it's like I'm still learning, man. I don't call myself people say I do good work, but I don't call myself a guru or an expert. There's still things I want to see in guitar amps that I haven't seen before. There's still things I'm working on that I haven't seen in guitar amps. So, and I'm still constantly reading and learning. And I got some good mentors, like I said, Bjorn Buell, BFE Electronics, and One Control. I can call him right now and he would say, hey, Mico, what can I help you with? And that's good to have. I mean, he's one of the top pedal builders and amp builders in the world. I'd say at least top 5. I mean, he's
Oh, cool.
really good stuff.
Very good. Yeah, I'll definitely have to look into their stuff. And yeah, I've got the website right here, so it's
And I
on
can
the.
pick up the phone and call John Sir if I need to. If there's something that, hey, I got an idea. Have you seen it? Or, where are we at? Have you, what, hey, can I do it like this? And I experiment. I think
Mm-hmm.
bouncing ideas off of older people and people have been around, maybe more than me, maybe less than me, um, just a good way to share and a good way to
Yeah.
gain knowledge.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
most people, if I wouldn't say anything, you wouldn't know that I've done everything I've done. And in a way, that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm the ninja of amplifiers.
Dude. So, well, what's your? I mean, you said you play a little guitar.
Right.
Like what amplifiers to you that just sound just the best?
To me, I personally like my modified super lead. It's a
Mm-hmm.
plexi from about 1968. I'm trying to do the Van Halen thing. Um, and Eddie gave me some tips on how to get there, that a lot of people kind of miss the boat on, so to speak. And I like some of the new stuff coming out of Trainwreck. I mean, it's there's the 3 original models that were great, but there's 3 new models that are more up to date and
Mm-hmm.
more can do a little bit more, like play with pedals, play with different tones, and have a little more gain on tap if you need it. I
There
actually
you
got
go.
2 of them right behind me.
Oh
If you
yeah,
see that, you
the
got a
train
little
wrecks.
2 train wrecks.
Yep.
The bottom one is a 50 watt with EL34s. That's cathode biased, and the top one has 6 EL86s or 84s. So, or 6 BQ5s in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
and it's actually cathode biased. It's 70 watts before clipping, which is that's pretty amazing. Um, the master volumes on both amps, you can get a great tone and still talk over it if you wanted to. So you could play in an apartment or it can play in a stadium. And it's probably the best
Nice.
master I've ever heard. I mean, a lot of
Dude.
amps have master volumes, but they
Yeah.
kind of kill your tone.
Right.
So these master volumes, you can actually talk over them. Then you can, and I've only had one of these amps, the top one, for maybe 4 days or a week max. And I can't find a bad tone in it. I've tried. I've tried. And they trust my ears, the Trainwreck guys. They
Mm-hmm.
trust me with the amps. And that goes way back to the Ken Fischer Trainwreck days where he would share stuff with me and he knew it wasn't going to leave.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to use his name for profit, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to clone his amps. I do my own thing.
That's awesome, man. That's yeah. So okay, so going back to some of the story. Wait a minute, we just got a dude, Michael B. Thank you so much, man.
I
Awesome
do
discussion,
I do have one
guys.
other little amp that I've been kind of promoting for
Oh
guys
yeah.
that are playing overseas. This thing is smaller than a loaf of bread, 100 watts, 2 channels with an effects loop, built-in delay, and it actually sounds like a super lead. It's not. I haven't seen anything else like it. It's designed by my friend Bjorn, and it's pretty awesome. I'm gonna show it to you.
Sure. Michael B. Thank you so much. Look, the lights changed. Michael B. Thank you for all your support, man.
Check this guy
Let's.
out.
Oh my goodness.
It's smaller than a loaf of bread, 2 channels, 100 watts, And I haven't seen anything like this, near this, that sounds as good that's been out. That actually sounds like a super lead on a JMP on one side, then a JCM 800 on the other side.
Dude.
It's pretty righteous.
Dude, that's awesome.
So you can play anywhere in the world with it because it works on 110 volts or 240 volts. So anywhere in the world, even if Bjorn told me yesterday, it'll play at 80 volts in the jungle if necessary. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh man. That's
I usually take I got a good friend that's a guitar player, that's really a smoking guitar player, Dante Banderas. I might have said his last name wrong, but I take him with me sometimes to do the demos because I can talk about the amps, he can play, then I'll play a little bit, then I hand the guitar quickly back to him. But we were just in Nashville at a couple stores demoing the amps, and they all invited me back to demo more and share some stories with their customers. So it's real fun.
Oh, that's cool. Have you been to Nashville a bunch of times?
Man, I've been there 11 times since last July. I mean, it's a 4-hour road trip, and I know a lot of music stores down there, and I have a lot of friends that are guitar players. So sometimes I go down and just work on their gear, then come back. And Brad Paisley, who I've been trying to work with for years, he owns 2 original wrecks that I know need serviced. So, Brad, if you're out there watching the show, I got you. I've talked to his tech. I've talked to his people. And I even give him some original Trainwreck stuff because he's a big fan of Trainwreck. And he still hasn't called me, but I'm pretty good friends with his tech.
Very good. Well, Brad, if you're watching, there's a phone number here too you can call.
Yes, indeed.
Get a hold of us. Dude. Yeah, I was going to say, because you had mentioned you were in Nashville, and it seemed like you just had a Nashville connection, you know?
Yes. Well, when I left California, so I moved to Nashville in the mid-'90s. And one of the first jobs as I hit the city was working on some old amps from like the early 60s. And that led me to be meeting a guy named Ray Butts, who built the Echosonic amp for Scotty Moore, who was Elvis's original guitar player. So I go over to meet Ray Butts, and I'm in my mid-20s, and he looks at me and goes, "You really want to know about this stuff?" I'm like, "Yeah, you started it. You helped start it." He loved it. And he's like in his 70s or 80s. He also designed the Filtertron pickup. That was his design. So he shows me the original prototypes of all that stuff. And I'm in heaven.
Cool.
I'm like glowing, floating, and just into it. He goes, "I see that you like this stuff. Would you like to meet Scotty Moore?" I said, "Would I?" "Yeah." "Well, he lives about a half an hour away. Let me call him." Goes in the kitchen, calls him on the old phone. He calls him up. "Hey, Michael wants to meet you. He's a cool dude. He likes amps and he likes tubes and he wants to hang out with you." He goes, "Tell him to be there about noon. And give him my phone number." So I call him about 11, get the directions, because before the internet and before Google and all that. And I pull up. He tells me on the phone, "Bring me a bottle of Johnny Walker Black and be prepared to listen to some stories." I said, "Okay." I do that. I show up. We have such a great time. He keeps me for dinner. I have dinner with him at his house or his cabin. And he gets out his old guitar, starts playing all the licks from the early Elvis records. That's All Right Mama, all that stuff. And it was just this cool. Very cool. Really nice guy.
There, that's incredible. And that's all stuff you knew, because you said
Yes.
you grew up on
Without
Elvis.
doubt. Well, my mom and my aunt would say, seeing Elvis and the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show
Mm-hmm.
was just wild to them to see that.
Yeah.
And I felt the same way when I saw Van Halen. I mean, I was like Moses coming down off the mountain. It was that much of a change to hear that. It was like everything else was almost forgotten.
Yeah.
Everything before that, I kind of forgot. Then Van Halen was like, wow, this is where it's at. This is the real deal. This is a change in music.
Yep. Yep. So Van Halen, we can take it to Van Halen. How did you? I think you had said earlier how you discovered them, but tell us again. How did you discover Van Halen? And
I think it was on the radio station in Bloomington, Indiana. We lived in a college town, IU,
mm-hmm.
and we had a bunch of rock stations. So it was always playing, especially when my mom wasn't around. So my brother would crank it up, and it would start out playing. The first song was Eruption. Then it goes right into Really Got Me, is how they would do it. And that just like, wow, what is this? So even as a kid, I recognized the impact that Van Halen made. So later on, when I start touring and working on more amps, I actually get to meet Eddie Van Halen and the band with Sammy at the Monsters of Rock. And these guys treat me like a king. I mean, I'm just a 17-year-old kid, and they're like, hey, you're with us. And they do a news interview. A long story short, they do a news interview, and Eddie goes, hey, you're with us. Go stand against the wall and be quiet. So basically that's what I did. And about 10 minutes into the interview, there's a knock on the door, and it's Zeke Clark. I recognized him, but it was like, hey, I need somebody to hold this guitar. I don't have a stand for it. It was a Steinberger, the one with the guitar I call it without a hand. It's kind of cut off at the neck.
The one that's like this.
Right. And there was no stand for it. Mm-hmm. And he said, Eddie Van Halen looks at me and says, hey, Mico, ride up with him, help him put away my guitars. I'm like, wow, this is awesome.
So
I ride it. Go ahead.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys in the chat. I think Van Halen opened up the Monsters of Rock where Eddie played the Steinberger, like first song.
I don't remember because I was backstage on that. I was with Zeke Clark half the show, and I had bought tickets, but it was way up in the nosebleed section. And I'm 17. And my parents weren't going to buy me tickets. So, so I'm up the nosebleed section, and Zeke goes, no. The band got you tickets second row, Eddie's side, and that's part of the show. You can stay with me. You won't see much, or at the middle of the show, I'll walk you down, set you in your seats, then I'll go back and do my job. The rest of the show, Eddie's flicking pics at me. And I go backstage after the show, hang out with them, and basically exchange information like phone number, address. And he said, stay in touch. That's the wrong words to say to me because I'm going to do it. And we reach out. I ended up meeting him in California, helping him find some Tweed Deluxes. And that took me to his house later on. And when Eddie says, here, sit in my chair in his studio, you do it. Even though it's kind of freaky, but you do it. And here, you want to hear some new songs? Yeah, yes, I do. You know, so he plays them at blistering loud levels. Like my ears were ringing for days, but that's how he did it.
Man.
So
Like, when was this?
Huh?
What year was
This
this?
would
Do
have
you
been
remember?
right around the FUCK record,
So, Carnal Knowledge.
right?
So,
Right around
okay.
that, because he was playing licks off that were going to be on that record.
So, like,
So
Pound Cake.
right,
That song, Pound Cake.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
He brings the faders down, and he's 3 feet away from me, and he's never far from a guitar. But he's 3 feet away from me. He goes, "Hey, what if I played it like this?" And he's playing this right next to me, 3 feet away, and I'm like, "Wow, this is awesome!" It was awesome the first time, but it was even more awesome seeing him do it live, right 3 feet away from you.
Yeah.
And you just recognize his genius. I mean, more so. I mean,
he's asking you. He's
Right.
asking you what you think.
What I think, and that was like,
You could
wow.
have said, "Nah, that stinks. Try it like this," and he would have done that.
Right. I mean, I don't know if he would have done it, but it was just cool that he felt that way.
Yeah.
There's one thing I'm going to give to your listeners that it's kind of weird, but if you can hear it, it will help you. That night, Eddie had real good ears, good ears. He could hear just about anything. But Ken Fischer taught me, hey, take your speaker cable going from your amp to your cabinet. If it stays that way, reverse it. Play it that way. Which way will sound better to you? There's a lot of guys out there that say cable is not directional. Like it's not directional because you can't really measure it on any scope or meter. But I'm going to tell you that 10,000 years or 1,000,000 years of evolution of your ears, they don't lie to you. One way will sound better than the other way. And it's minute. It's not like it's going to make you sound like $1,000,000, but my philosophy is everything goes together and it all makes a sum of the whole sound. So if I can make someone sound even 10% better, I've done a good job, because they didn't notice it. They didn't realize. And me and Eddie spent till 4 a.m. marking his cables and flipping them around. We mark them so we know which end always goes in to the cabinet and which end goes into the head. So we know which way it goes if we ever take it apart. But we spent 4 a.m. going through all the cables that he could, and I was tired. And he was like, "No one ever told me this. This is his exact words. This is bitching. California thing. This is bitching."
Yeah.
So it was like, yeah, it was pretty cool to have Eddie tell you this is bitching. So every time they would come to town, after that, we would kind of hook up. Like I'd be on the guest list, and I could spend half the day with him or a few hours, just help him out. He had people all over the world, so I'm sure I wasn't the only one, but I've been lucky enough and blessed enough to meet or talk to everybody that's worked on his main amp. And they all tell me some very similar stuff, and some tell me a little different stuff. So, that's to know John Suhr, or be able to talk to him, to talk to Dave Friedman, to talk to Victor Mason, to talk to Peter Van Wilden, to talk to all those guys, and Jose when he was around.
Yeah.
I mean, Jose Ondario. I mean, I met Jose probably 3 times when I was in Hollywood back in the late 80s and early 90s. And, just being able to bounce ideas. He also knew Ken Fischer. So that was kind of cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I have a friend. He goes by the name Texas Joe.
Okay.
And he used to go to Jose's.
Okay.
Like years ago. Like
right.
I guess not early 90s, maybe late 80s, early 90s, somewhere. So he used to go and see him. Let's see. Oh yeah, everybody's saying bitchin' in the chat. Bitchin'. Well, I'm in California, so I say bitchin'. I say hella all the time.
Right.
Maybe that's just how we learned how to talk out here. I don't know.
But it was like Eddie. Eddie was a guy that would sometimes, if I haven't seen him in a long time, I had to initiate the conversation. But then he would open up. It was rarely, except for that first meeting, it was like people like were pulling posters off the wall and crowding Eddie Van Halen. Sign this, sign this. I never did that. And me not doing that, kind of, he looked over at me with that grin that he has and was like, we like locked each other's eyes. And he was like, this is a bunch of crap, but this is my job. This is what I do. This is part of the job. And when I don't want anything from him and I offered to give him something, like I give him a t-shirt and one of my guitar picks, who gives a guitar pick to Eddie Van Halen but me, So I think that it kind of just opened up some doors with me and him's relationship, knowing that I didn't want anything, just to be in his presence.
Mm-hmm.
And go ahead.
So you got to go to his studio.
Yes.
Right? You got to go to 5150. You got to hear music there, like before it was out.
Right. I got to see the Soldano that he was playing, the slanted Marshall cabinet, I think with like 75-watt Celestians that didn't really sound good other than with that Soldano. I got to see his main amp. Then he opened up his garage door, one of his garage doors, and it's full of vintage gear, like chock full of it. I mean, there's oranges, there's like Sound City, there's high watts, there's Fenders, he was a big vintage collector, on some level. I'm not saying he used it all the time, but he liked it.
But he had it.
Without a doubt.
He had the stuff and he could use it. And
without a doubt.
That's what I always say on these shows is the average, the listener of an album has no idea the gear that artists use on the records. It could be anything but the thing you see them using on the stage.
Right.
Right. Because whatever gets the sound. Well, we're talking about ears. It could be the biggest piece of crap, look like hell. If it gets that sound and it works on this track, that's the magic. That's what you use.
Well, there's a photo I gave you with Eddie in Neptune, New Jersey, playing a super lead. That super lead's a 1971 super lead, and Eddie loved that amp. I will tell you another story. I seen Eddie plug into a 70s, probably a 71 or 73 Fender Twin, and it still sounded like Eddie Van Halen. That's it. I mean, he loved that amp. He actually tried to buy it many times from the owners there at Kramer. But he could plug in just about to any good amp and sound like Eddie Van Halen. I mean, he just had the hands.
That's where it is.
Without a doubt.
That's where it is. Yeah.
50%.
Yeah. Even if the gear does sound like crap, it still sounds good because it's in the hands.
Right.
That's really what it is. Let's see. So, hey, Rock Daddy, what's up, man? In the chat. We see you guys. What about his guitars? Did you get to see a bunch of his guitars and stuff too?
I saw almost all the guitars, except for the Frankenstein that was probably in a case. Mm-hmm. But I saw the 1984, the 5150, the Steinberger, the Ripley guitar, which I really wanted to see because that was kind of, each string had its own control. Mm-hmm. That was kind of cool. And it was stereo for electric guitar. That's pretty neat. Then I got to see all of his amps, all the ones that were in the studio. And he told me that he uses that main Marshall somewhere on every record. And over time, it just didn't sound right. And I know, like I said, I've met or I've talked to everybody that's been in that amp. So it gradually got back to where he liked it, but it took some work.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dave Friedman is the one that finally finished it up, and he was hey, this is the best it's sounded forever.
Mm-hmm. So that was when was that? Like in the 90s?
That would have been probably probably early 90s. I'd have to check the dates. I know Victor Mason had that amp for a while, and he actually cloned Eddie's output transformer, had it sent to a transformer manufacturer. I want one just like this. And he calls me up and says, hey, I know you got that super lead you got the John Sir. It needs an output transformer. You want the same one Eddie has? Yes, I do. So he sells me an output transformer. I put it on, call him up. It does sound like $1 million. I mean, that's part of it, but that's not everything. Mm-hmm. You got to set the amp up right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the output tubes, it's the preamp tubes, it's the way you set the bias, it's the 50K pot on the middle control. It's using a Variac, and around that 69 to 89 volts, depending on your flavor. It's set on 115 volts coming out of it. So there's a lot of little things that go into it.
Let me ask you this. How often would you retube an amplifier? Like, say, if you use it, let's say, I'll give you two situations. Mm-hmm. Let's say you're always using it all the time. It's always on. And let's say you haven't used it in 20 years.
I would say all the time, probably every 2,000 hours or so, if you're playing it all the time. But that's going to depend on the level you're playing it at. If you're always running it on 10 with a maybe an attenuator, you're just going to wear out a lot sooner.
Okay.
You should hear that, though. The notes are not going to be as crisp. The bass response is not going to be there. Or on the flip side, also depends on how good the tubes are that are in the amp. But if you're playing it like sparingly, you could easily go for years. I mean, if you're just playing once a week, it's when you start to hear them diminish to you, or you take them to someone like me, and I check all the tubes on a quality tester and put the best tubes in the best spots.
What about an amp? Say, a lot of times there's an amp head. You can tap on it and you hear like a microphonic
that can happen to a new tube or an old tube. It doesn't. The age of the tube kind of doesn't make a difference on that, because I've seen that happen right out of the box. When you buy them from your local music store, or you get them in the mail. Preamp tubes are prone to do that. Power tubes can do that also.
What about like the crackling noises? Because I'm trying to tell you about my amp. Yeah, my amp here, I've only had it this might be embarrassing. I've only had it retubed once.
Right.
I've had the amp since 1990. I've had it since 95. I only had it retubed once, and again, this is embarrassing. I had it retubed in 2000.
Right. Hey,
so 24 years ago, and like if I were to flip that on right now, you would hear you'd hear like a hissing start, and then you would hear like little like crackling sounds. Right. Like, what does that tell you?
Sometimes it's the contacts get a little oxidized, and the pins get oxidized. Sometimes those just need to be cleaned, and that can take care of that. It's not always just the tube. It could be the contacts in the socket. That could be that also.
Or just like dust in the amp itself.
Yeah, right. That can do it on the inputs, or if it's got an effects loop. Those are prone to making crackle and pops. I mean, it could be a little bit of everything, not just one thing. I don't really have to kind of see it before I'd say, this is kind of, I start at the output and work my way to the input. Is kind of how I do it.
Yeah.
Because usually most of your problems are going to be found in the B plus, which is your high voltage.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah. I love this amp. This is, you've probably seen these. You probably saw them when you were at Eddie's house. This is what they call it the block logo.
Right.
It says the EVH on the front. This is the one everybody wants here.
Right.
I've had it since 1995. I would travel with it, use it, all the time. And I had it retubed only one time. Mm-hmm. And again, that was like 24 years ago. Wow. And I use it sparingly. I don't use it anymore. Like I'll use it like every once in a while. I'll use it, and it's made that crackling noise for years. Like I'll turn it on, and it goes shh, and then it has like just slight crackling noises. And
well, I know with Ted Nugent, his touring amps when he was playing 5150s, we installed a tube shield inside the cover to make his amp a little more quieter, and that kind of helped out. It was over V1, and we kind of grounded it, so that was kind of like a little thing that helped him out.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, they're kind of noisy amps anyway.
Right.
These.
Right.
And they're, just they have that sound. There's other things now that kind of get, this is considered a classic now, I guess.
Right. Right.
The 5150. So, yeah. Like even Robot Master Switch here in the chat is saying the block letter 5150 is a holy grail amp.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to have to cover up the logo. I would take this in and out of rehearsal studios,
right? And
I would cover it up so people didn't know what it was, because otherwise other guitar players would see it and they would want to play through it.
Right.
And this goes back years. This goes back 20 years.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, the biggest thing on those is like there's a bunch of ribbon connectors on the inside, and sometimes with heat and over time, those can lift up the connectors. The plastic connectors kind of lift up, so it doesn't make a good connection anymore. Sometimes just pushing those back down can make the crackle and pop go away.
Oh.
Sometimes.
Okay. Like I work on guitars myself.
Okay.
I have a little workbench over here.
Oh, cool.
I've never worked on an amplifier. I'm scared to death to try anything in there.
Yeah,
like,
be careful.
What would you say to somebody who doesn't, like, it'd be best to take it to somebody?
I would say take it to a qualified technician and let them kind of do it if you're unfamiliar. So I'd hate for anybody to get shocked, because they can store deadly high voltage in the filter capacitors. Just because the amp's off and it's unplugged doesn't mean it can't hurt you.
No way.
Right. Way.
like see, California, way. So wait a minute. So I could have that unplugged for, like, say how long? Like, not even have it on.
Usually they'll eventually drain the voltage that's inside the caps. It eventually will drain off, but sometimes it could take hours for that to happen. Maybe even a day on certain situations. But if you leave it up, what I would tell you, if you're going to try it, call me and I'll walk you through doing it. But you could unplug it, leave it like on the play mode, unplug it while it's on the play mode, and that'll help those capacitors kind of drain off the voltage a little faster.
Oh, okay.
That'll help. Then I'll tell you where to put the meter you can see if there's any voltage there before you put your hands in there.
Okay. We'll have to try that. That sounds like fun. Yeah, because I've had this for years and years and years, and it makes a bunch of noise, and yeah. Wow. Well, cool, man. Let's see what.
Happy to help your listeners and you.
Oh,
share my knowledge. I'm getting older, and the circle's getting smaller of the guys that know.
It's crazy, huh?
Without a doubt. Someone told me I was a dinosaur last week. And I'm like, wow, 53, a dinosaur.
You know who Andy Summers is?
Yes.
The Police?
Yes.
He told me I'm old.
Wow.
I'm a little younger than you. Just a
Right,
little
right.
bit, but
Okay.
dude, let's see what else. What else? I know I had said about an hour, and we're at about
Right.
an hour. You
Please,
can always
as
come
long as
back. You can always come back. You know,
Okay, I'd love to. I'd love to do that.
we can always do another one. And anything, yeah, anything you wanna end on? I know I've got your links.
Well, I would say, I mean, don't be afraid for your listeners to try things if they're guitar players. Sometimes what you might read in a book or you might see your favorite guitar player using, they may not actually be using that. Just because their name's on it, that may not be what they're actually using.
You mean like products?
Yeah, right. I'm not saying the Eddie Van Halen line, he did use that stuff, but sometimes it's a custom shop version.
What do you
Go ahead.
But before, what do you think about like the I think you talked about this because we talked in the green room before we went live, so I'm kind of not sure like what we actually said beforehand. What do you think about the whole thing that Eddie talked about in the very beginning with my cousin? My cousin is a guy named Jazz Obrecht,
Okay.
who wrote for Guitar Player magazine. Like Eddie did his first interviews with my cousin.
Right. Awesome.
So you know that the 1980 cover, this one,
Right.
this one right here. My cousin wrote this. You know
Oh,
this
cool.
magazine? That
Oh,
one?
yeah.
Yeah, April 80.
Yep.
April 80. So in those magazines, he talks about the Variac, all that whole thing. Like what's your opinion on all that?
Well, I'll tell you, he did use a Variac, and he kind of threw people off, saying it went to 140. If you take your amp to 140, you're gonna burn it up. That's not good. He really went down in voltage, not up. So anywhere between 69 volts and 89 volts is where he liked it. And you can say, well, Michael, how do you know that? Well, one, he told me. Number two, if you ever watch the old footage of Eddie on the David Letterman show,
Yep.
and his main amp is behind him. And you notice that pilot light isn't really on. It's not shining red. So it means the voltage was dropped to control the output or control the volume in such a small space. Because everybody knows a super lead is loud, especially to get anything out of it, you got to play it loud. So that was part of it. The other part is, having the way he set the amp up, and Jose helped him with this, but using a load box to go into the mixing board, or using a slave amp, which was a Fender Bandmaster, the one with the presence control, like from about 1962, a Bandmaster, taking the output of the Bandmaster and running it into the super lead. And with the Mighty Mite pickup on that first record, that'll get you there. Then Blackback Celestians. I don't want to give away everything, then I'll never find this stuff again.
You guys, he's just kidding.
Right, just kidding. Just kidding.
Oh, man.
But another thing is later on, like when you get to about 1984,
Oh, yeah.
one guitar's got some JB pickups by Seymour Duncan, and another one's got pickups made by a guy in Kentucky who's actually the pickup maker to the Stars. He is the guy. He will never tell you he's the guy, but Mick Mars told me he's the guy. Steve Miller told me he's the guy. Ted Nugent told me he's the guy. Eddie Van Halen tells me he's the guy. But, you call this guy in Kentucky who's been around forever. He's really known for making Telly pickups. Makes the best in the world. But he also makes all of Mick Mars's pickups, all of Steve Miller's pickups, all of, I think, Ted Nugent's pickups, or most of them. So some of the big names, I love Seymour Duncan. I love MJ. I mean, I've met him, but they didn't do everything that Eddie used, because he was always changing. He was always switching things out. And like Dave Friedman says, if there was a knob, he would have turned it. You know, he was always searching and tone chasing, like the name of the book, Tone Chasers. Steve Miller's book, you know. So there's a lot of good information, but he was a master by throwing people off. So, like in the early days, he would actually turn around, had your back to the crowd when he was playing, so you couldn't see what he was doing, because he didn't want everybody to steal everything he was doing. So that's another reason why on some of the earlier guitars, he switched up so often. You know?
Oh, yeah.
There was a lot of things I asked him, because I was like back to being a little kid again, even in my 20s, asking him these questions. And some of the stuff I knew he remembered, and some of the stuff he just didn't want to tell me. You know, I just knew, because he said he never really liked that tone, which I believe, because he did change it as time went on. Like the first record doesn't sound like the second record. Second record doesn't sound like the third record, and on and on. But I think time he gets to that second record, it's more consistent. The tone's more consistent until he gets a Fair Warning. Then that's a little darker. But he was in a darker place in his life. You know, told me he was drinking every day, and, you know, just in a darker place. And he would come in late at night to do his solos because he didn't want anybody else to know. He would have him and Don Landy, just him in the studio. That's it. He'd record it, then go sleep, then wait to hear it the next day. And that was right from his mouth.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it was
on the band at that time.
And then it was after that, shortly after that, he built his own studio.
Right.
And he was able to do everything, leave guitars everywhere, and all different states of everything. And
it's funny that you say that, because when I was there, it was wild. He was no more than 3 feet to 4 feet from a guitar. If it wasn't on his neck with a strap, if you went to the bathroom, which I did, went to the bathroom, there was a guitar and a little amp in the bathroom. And he told me he wrote some of his best stuff on the toilet, which is wild. You know, he was just that way. I walk into his living room. There's a guitar and a little amp, little champ. I walk into another part of his house. There's a guitar and a blackface reverb, deluxe reverb amp. I mean, but that was him. That was if inspiration hits you, he wanted to be ready.
Yeah.
And that's why he has boatloads of recordings. I mean, like a room full of recordings that I hope sometime we'll get to hear some of it.
Yeah, same here. I would love to hear any of that. Do you happen to know? Did you get to hear anything that like never came out?
I heard some stuff that I don't know if it ever came out, but he told me to sit in his chair right in front of the console in like the mixing room. And he says, "Here, sit down. Here, sit in my chair." Because I was going to sit in the one far away. I figured he's going to sit there. And he reaches over and grabs a guitar. He brings the faders up. Here, listen to this. He plays it, brings them back down. What do you think? That's awesome, man. This is going to be stuff for the FUCK record. Then he plugs in, plays it 3 feet away from me in a different way. Do you think that one sounds better? What do you think? They both sound awesome. They both sound awesome. They both sound great. You pick. But the tones, and to see him do it 3 feet away from you, 4 feet max, was That was just spectacular. I mean, beyond awesome. When I left, I was on cloud 9 for several weeks, maybe even months after that. I mean, it was just a wild experience.
I would say even today, just
Without doubt.
to have that memory, and that's incredible.
Well, in
That's so cool.
2009, I did some work for Warren Dean Martini
Mm-hmm.
with Rat, and John Corabi was his rhythm player. And I show up in my city, and I kind of knew John a little bit, but I didn't know him well. But we reconnected from our Hollywood days, and I look at his Soldanos. I think he sent a picture of his Soldano amps. Then, and that's John Corabi's, his little rig. Then I spent time with Warren, and all around the Midwest, he kind of let me kind of hang out with him wherever he went, wherever they played. Hey, you're on the guest list. You're on the guest list. I love talking to you, Mico. Just a cool guy.
Wow.
And so is John Corabi.
Wow.
I mean, I think he's with the Dead Daisies now, with Doug Aldridge, who is also a smoker in guitar playing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working with a guy named Dante Balladares, who's also a local Nashville guy that's a ripper. He does private lessons, so I'm hoping he'll give me some private lessons sometime. If you're listening, Dante, I could sure use them.
Let me go ahead, and I know I'm feeling bad because I know I had said
You're
about
good.
an hour, and
You're
we're
good.
over an
You're
hour,
good.
but
Take as long as you need.
and my web pages are starting to crash.
Okay.
Let me see. Let me just I'll show a few photos that you would send.
Okay.
That you would send over. Let's see. So I think we can tell.
Yep. That's my first meeting with Joe Perry. I think I was about 16 there. It was a permanent vacation tour. And I had a little Kodak disc camera, like the 24 little disc, kind of didn't last long, I don't think. But
Mm-hmm.
I thought I lost that photo. And my mother had it the whole time. And when she passed away, I found a lot of my old rock stuff that I kind of re-embraced. There was a series of things. I'll share this with you.
Mm-hmm.
I would go out to shows. I quit touring. I quit working on amps, but I had amps with me because it's kind of hard to get out of my blood. But I went to go see Lonnie Mack. I've never seen him before, and I heard he was really good. I knew his music, but I didn't know him. Place is sold out. His amp goes down, and I'm there. And I see his tech feeding his twin reverb fuses, just feeding him. I go, hey, man, can I help you out? Yeah. I go, dude, you can feed that fuses all day long. It's not going to help you. Let me see what I can do. I had a Fender Pro in my car at that show, luckily, and a 70s, I think it was a Trainer, like a Trainer bass amp, like the OB1 or something, or YB1. And I took the fuses out of that, because it's 5 amp fuse, and I come back in, pull two tubes out of the twin. I said, just use the 2 center ones. And Lonnie said, I'm not going to play if I can't have my twin and my Roland Jazz Chorus. So he played with 2 amps. I'm not going to play. I'm leaving. And the owner of the club, which I knew, was like, please, Mico, help him out. Bring that Fender in it from your car if you have to. Whatever you got to do. This place is sold out. So I fix the amp. He plays the show. He invites me back the next day to work on his amp, takes me to breakfast, and tells me, about him being the bass player on the Doors. The only bass player they ever had. Roadhouse Blues. That's
Whoa.
Lonnie Mack.
I didn't know that.
And he was a producer for a while. And his rhythm guitar player at the time was Wayne Perkins, who's a big Southern rock player. Played on a bunch of stuff. Played on the Rolling Stones. Played with, I think, the Wrecking Crew for a little while. He played with a lot of different people. So I ended up working on his amp also, and we made a connection. And they would send me gear and just share stories. Lonnie knew Elvis really well, so he's telling me firsthand Elvis stories. That was kind of cool. I've been just blessed to work with a lot of different people. I think I sent you a list, but the Lonnie Mack thing happened. I go see Black Label Society with Zakk Wylde.
Mm-hmm.
Half an hour into the show, his 2203 Marshall goes down. And I'm there. I walk up. They didn't know me, but here's my card if I can help you. And same thing, output tubes. I didn't have them, but I lived pretty close to the venue. I said, let me run home real quick, take an extended break. I'll come back, and I'll bring a Marshall with me. Like, you will? Yeah, I'll do that. So Zakk loved it. And he like, hey, anything I can help you out, I'll be happy to help you. You help me through this. Later on that night, they're driving to the next show. The roadie leaves the trailer unlocked. His guitars fly out on the highway.
Oh, no.
And they don't find out for a couple hours later that his gear is sprawled out on a cornfield. But they find their gear. The next one was Steve Vai. He's playing a local venue, and I guess fate, because I wasn't doing any amps at the time. Mm-hmm. I was kind of over it, and I just kind of like, I'm gonna go get a regular job, work being a manager or something. And Steve Vai, his whole rack goes down. I'm at the show. I walk up. Hey. I yell, hey, I can help you out. He looks over at me. Hey, come on up here. He motions me up to the stage. Come on up. So I go up on the stage, and it was this power conditioner went out. I go, let's unhook all this stuff, plug it back into something else, another conditioner, or even a power strip. And that's what we did. Comes back on. Steve invites me back after the show, talks to me a little bit, and I think I upset him, really. I'll tell you this kind of a funny story. So we're talking, everything's going well. Everything's going good. And I was tired. And I said, hey, Steve, you've worked with David Lee Roth and you've worked with Sammy Hagar. You worked with Eddie Van Halen. Who's the bigger butt? Who's the bigger butthole? And he looked at me, didn't say a word. Act like he got like a mad look. Takes off, leaves. And I'm like, what I say? What was wrong? But I met him later on, like years later. He remembered that story. And I go, man, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, if I upset you. He goes, no, it was just a bad night. No, you're good. Bad night. So when he went to go sell his Jose and Lee Jackson modded Marshalls, I got the phone call to buy them, but I couldn't afford them. He only wanted 10 grand for all three of them. And I'll send you those photos. I gotta look them up, but I have them. The ones he sent me.
Oh, that's cool.
But 10 grand would have been a deal for all three of those. And just one Jose Marshall sold for 20 grand or 23 grand recently in the last 6 months or a year. I think Robert Fortis sold the Mick Mars modded Marshall from Jose. And it was like 24 grand or something like that. Mm-hmm. That was just for one. I could have got all 3 of his amps in the flight case that said Steve Vai
Oh.
for 10 grand, but I didn't have the money. And, I'm pretty good with amps, so I can kind of almost make anything I want.
You can make an amp.
I can build everything I want. Yeah. I don't.
Steve Vai amp.
Yeah. I mean, I pretty much don't. I really don't buy anything anymore because unless it's just severely cool, I got companies that send me stuff that want me to review it and say, hey, this is what I like, what I don't like, and how to maybe make it better. But I can make almost everything I want. It's kind of growing up in that era too, where you fix things. You just learn to do that as a youngster.
Yeah.
That's kind of a lost thing these days, or it's far and in between.
Yeah, these days it's lucky if anybody goes outside anymore.
Right. Right. You know what I mean?
I am outside actually, but I'm not. I'm in a room.
Right.
Hey,
also,
Dan. Yeah. Dan, what's up, dude? Good to see you, man. Let me ask you this really quick, since you brought up Steve Vai.
Ask me anything you want.
And then I'm feeling bad. I'll ask you this, and then we'll wrap it up because we can always do this again. A channel member, a viewer, Bay Area Rich. Hey man, if you're watching this, he gave me this little amp, and it's a little Steve Vai. It's called a Positive Grid.
Right.
Have you seen those?
I've seen them, but I've never played through one. I've seen them like the commercials. I've seen the commercials, and I've seen them like in like music stores, but I've never plugged into one yet.
Yeah.
Looks like a little modeler, like a modeling amp, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah, it's called the Spark Mini. It's a little Steve Vai.
Oh, cool.
I think it has 2 speakers. That is like a bass speaker down here. And what you do is you hook it up. And by the way, we're not sponsored. Right. I just brought this up because you had mentioned Steve Vai.
Mm-hmm.
And what you do is you hook it up to your phone.
Oh, wow.
And you can control it from your phone. Like it has like all the little.
Oh, wow.
You can change like the amp. You can change any effects.
Right.
And it's a little modeler amp.
Right.
It sounds great. Right. And I know I'm a musician myself. I know there's nothing like a tube amp. There's nothing like the real thing.
I knew that was coming.
There's nothing like that. But hey, you want to go sit outside somewhere, you want to take something with you, busking, if you want to go busk, this is a pretty cool little thing. And it's a Steve Vai. That's why I brought it up, because you had mentioned Steve Vai. See, it has a little Steve Vai like logo on there.
I got you. So cool. Very cool.
So yeah, very, very cool stuff. Yeah. Well, dude, Mico, this has been cool. This has been amazing. You'll definitely have to come back.
I will
come back again, and I've got you. I mean, we hooked up on Facebook anyway, so
yes.
So and we've been messaging and stuff, but
everybody can find me on Facebook.
Yes.
Just be respectful, and I'll try to get back with you as soon as I can. Of your listeners, so I don't spend all day on there by any means. I got work to do, but I'll be happy to help anybody I can.
There you go. Okay, so there's some of the links right there, and I've got you. Yeah. So Facebook is like your main.
Yeah, now, for me personally, I'm going to have my own website later on this coming year, but I'm kind of underground. It's like, to get a hold of me, you'd either have to know me from years ago, so I still got all my old customers and some new ones, or so you're like, hey, I know how to get a hold of him. That's how you would do it. But that keeps it where I don't get overwhelmed with a bunch of work that I can't get to. My turnaround time's pretty quick, 2 to 3 weeks. If I have the stuff in-house, 2 to 3 weeks. And, it keeps me just busy enough. I don't like having when a UPS truck shows up and drops off 30 pieces of gear and I got to load it up and bring it all in and, try to get it back in a week. I've done that, but that's, I want to keep it fun. I want to keep it, where it's not so much as a job. That way I still enjoy what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Once something becomes a job, you kind of lose the funness or the joy. And I still get fired up about hearing a good amplifier or a good pedal or a good guitar player. That hasn't went away from me, and I hope it never leaves.
I don't think it will.
It's deep in my DNA.
It sounds like it. You had said the stuff that you grew up on, the stuff that you were hearing. It's there. I think it's going to be there forever.
Oh, I know.
So yeah. So you said you're in Indiana.
Indianapolis, Indiana.
Right. So if people people send you stuff, or if they're local to you, or
all the time, either customers or new people that find me, or even companies send me stuff to review and kind of compare and contrast. I do a lot of work with Eminence speakers.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I do a lot of work with Celestians. They send me stuff. I kind of evaluate it because I've been doing it for a while. People think I got a good ear. And that's one thing that Ken Fischer said. Out of the 3 guys that are going to meet Aerosmith, you got one thing I can't train, and train quickly. You got some ears that can hear the nuances. And it would take guys 10 and 20 years to develop that. So I kind of take that as high praise, when you got a guy like Ken Fischer telling you those things.
There you go, man. Well,
cool. But I'm just a guy that loves guitar amps. If you ask anybody that knows me, they'll say, Mico doesn't like guitar amps. He loves them.
Yeah. Actually, the guy that you didn't meet him tonight, his name's Ron. He's under the weather. Normally, he would have been here tonight with us.
Right.
He has like 17 stacks.
Wow. I got nutty for probably 8 to 10 years or more. So anytime I had any extra money, and this is back when you could buy a super lead for $350 to $500 max. You could buy a plexi for $500. In the early 80s, mid 80s, all the way up until the mid 90s. I was buying a super lead, 71 super lead, I think $375. And now they're like $3,000, $4,000 or more. I could buy a Fender Bassman, a tweed Bassman for about $500. And but I went nutty. I had 10 champs of many different years. I had a bunch of deluxes, a whole wall of super leads. You can't see it in the picture, but I still have the first Marshall cabinet I ever bought. And that was in the late 80s, like 86. And that was from the John Mellencamp band. I got hooked up with them and buying the cabinet. Me and a friend in school. It was a half stack. He took the head. I took the cabinet because that's what I needed. And it turned out to be a 1968 cabinet. So I got a good one. I didn't know it at the time, but it was a good one. It had all PV covering on it, from the 70s. So the covering was wrong. The grill cloth was wrong. And that was my first project to make right, to put a new grill cloth and new covering on it from a good friend and tech here in town, Kevin Silva. I worked with him for a few years later on, but he goes, "You're going to recover that yourself?" I said, "Yeah, it's my cabinet." Because I'm not, I'm going to do it. He goes, "Well, here, I'll guide you a little bit. I've done a lot of these." So he kind of helped me, guided me, because if you've never done it before, it is a challenge, especially get the corners right. But we got it right, and it's a smoking cabinet. I mean, it's a keeper.
Very nice. Very cool, man. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think I'll let you go. I mean,
Okay.
I'm feeling terrible, but no,
It's all good. It's all good.
No, this is awesome. Yeah.
You're talking language.
Let's do this again. When Ron's feeling better, come back.
Okay.
Let's say like in a week or something, couple weeks.
That sounds good.
You know, come back and we'll do it again.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And so I've got the links in the chat here.
Okay.
Don't hang up yet. I just want to say thank you to everybody for watching. Thank you to our channel members. Thank you for your continued support for this channel and these shows here on YouTube. But we're also live on X. Are you on X?
I think so.
Okay.
We'll
have to hook up on X. We're also on Facebook.
Right.
And this is also a podcast. So you guys can actually listen to this on like Spotify and iHeart and all those places. But so don't hang up just yet.
Okay.
You guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys on the next show. And let me see. You had mentioned this name earlier, so I'll go ahead and I've got some. Actually, can I get? See, forgot. Can I get a channel ID from you real quick? Do you know what that is?
No, I don't. Tell me.
That's where you say.
I'm
that's where
technology challenged.
That's where you say, hi, this is, and you say your name, and you say, you're watching Johnny Beane TV.
Okay.
Can I get one of those from you?
No,
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, this is Mico Klokoc, and you're watching Johnny Beane TV. Rock on.
There we go. Awesome. Can somebody clip that? Okay. See, we got a new channel ID. New channel ID here.
Nice.
Okay. You had mentioned this name earlier, so I'm going to play this as an ID as we go out. So, and don't hang up. You guys, I'll see you guys on the next show. Thanks for watching. Drop your comments below, and we'll see you guys on the next one here on what channel are we watching, MJ?
Hi, this is MJ from the Seymour Duncan NAM 2023 in Anaheim, California. You're watching Johnny Beane.
Johnny Beane.
Johnny Beane. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your support.
Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Click on another video here on the screen and smash that thumbs up, and I will see you guys on the next episode right here on Johnny Beane TV.